we were discussing about the powers of the Supreme Court, especially from Article 131 of the Constitution. Article 131 of the Constitution deals with the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. Original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court means this power is subject to the powers of the Constitution. That in exclusion to any other court's powers, the Honorable Supreme Court of India has got original jurisdiction in any dispute between the Government of India and one or more states, or between the Government of India and any state or states on one side and one or more other states on the other, and between two or more states. So far as the dispute involves in any question, whether of law or fact, on which the existence or extent of a legal right depends. So, Article 131 deals with the power of the Supreme Court on original side. So, courts have got powers, original side, appeal side, and review side, like that. So, original powers of jurisdiction of Supreme Court is dealt with under Article 131, and appellate jurisdiction of Supreme Court in appeals from High Court in certain cases are dealt with under Article 132, and regarding civil matters 133 and criminal matters 134. You have to take a certificate for appeal to the Supreme Court from the High Court under Article 134A. Then under Article 135, the power of federal court, jurisdiction and powers of the federal court under existing law to be exercisable by the Supreme Court. So, before the enactment of Constitution, we were having federal courts, and what are the powers and jurisdiction those federal courts were having are given to Supreme Court of India under Article 135. In certain cases, even if the High Court doesn't give a certificate to go for an appeal to the Supreme Court under Article 132, 133 and 134, which deals with appellate jurisdiction of the Supreme Court in civil and criminal matters and in some important matters, the Supreme Court has got power to give special leave, notwithstanding containing anything in any chapter of the Union Part 5, to appeal from any judgment, decree, determination, sentence or order in any cause or matter passed or made by any court or tribunal in the territory of India. Then the Supreme Court has got review powers under Article 137, subject to the law that may be made by Parliament or any rules made under Article 145. So the power of review of the Supreme Court, its own judgment to be reviewed by it any time after it is pronounced. Then apart from the powers of appellate, review and original jurisdictions under Article 138, the Parliament has got power to confer any other jurisdiction and powers which are dealt with by the Union, that is Parliament, under Union list. You know, there are three lists: Union list, State list and Concurrent list. So in the Union list subjects, the Parliament has got exclusive power. In relation to those subjects, the Parliament has got power under Article 138 to confer any jurisdiction and powers to the Supreme Court. And likewise, state government also under special agreement give some powers and also create some jurisdiction to the Honorable Supreme Court under Article 138 Clause 2. In that case, the Parliament also has to accept and give such power and jurisdiction to the Supreme Court. Then only the Supreme Court get powers. Even if the government of any state may by special agreement confers any jurisdiction and powers to the Honorable Supreme Court, then also Parliament again by law must allow and provide for exercise of such powers. Then we have got Article 139, which is very important. It says conferment on the powers, conferment on the Supreme Court of powers to issue certain writs. The Parliament has got power to confer powers to the Supreme Court of any type, to issue any type of writs or orders which are not even mentioned in Article 32 Clause 2. This is, we already discussed about Article 13, and at that time I did not tell you about Article 32. Article 32 is a right of guarantee to every citizen for getting remedy of when there is infringement of fundamental rights. Let us read Article 32 Clause 1 so as to understand Article 139 of the Supreme Court, Part 5, Chapter 4. Article 32 says, the right to move the Supreme Court by appropriate proceedings for the enforcement of the rights conferred by this part is guaranteed. Likewise, the Supreme Court also has got power under Clause 2 to issue directions or orders or writs, including writs in the nature of habeas corpus, mandamus, provision, quo warrant and certiorari, for the purpose of enforcement of any of the rights conferred by Part 3 of the Constitution. So what are all the writ powers that are given or conferred on Supreme Court under Article 32 Clause 2 to be exercised by the Honorable Supreme Court of India while dealing with any case or any situation where fundamentals or rights are violated? Those powers and jurisdiction powers can be conferred by the Parliament to the Supreme Court even in other situations for any purposes which are not mentioned under Article 32 Clause 2 or 32 Clause 1. And under Article 139A, the Honorable Supreme Court has got power to transfer of certain cases. Under Article 140, ancillary powers are given for enabling the Honorable Supreme Court most effectively to exercise the jurisdiction conferred upon it by or under this Constitution. So, Parliament has got power to confer not only the powers that are mentioned under Article 139 of Constitution, but also some ancillary powers or such supplemental powers which are not inconsistent with any of the provisions of the Constitution as may appears necessary or desirable for the purpose of enabling the court more effectively to exercise jurisdiction conferred upon it by or under this Constitution. Then Article 141, which is a very important article, which made the Honorable Supreme Court a very powerful final court, and it says the law declared by the Supreme Court shall be binding on all courts within the territory of India. So once the Supreme Court gives a decision, it is automatically binding on all the courts in India, in the territory of India. Then Article 142 says that while the Supreme Court exercising its jurisdiction, it may pass such decree or make such order as is necessary for doing complete justice certain times by following the sections and exercising the powers conferred on the Supreme Court. If the Honorable Supreme Court feels that it is not doing any complete justice, then Supreme Court under Article 142 by using the power given to it to do complete justice may pass such decree or may pass such order. And the same is enforceable throughout the territory of India till Supreme Court passes any contrary this thing. Likewise, Supreme Court has got power to order for attendance of any person or the discovery or production of any documents or the investigation or punishment of any contempt of itself under Article 142 Clause 2. Then under Article 143, the President of India in certain circumstances can consult the Supreme Court to give its opinion. Then it is the duty of the Supreme Court to give its opinion on every particular question of law or fact that has arisen or is likely to arise. So it is called advisory jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to give advices or opinions rather to President of India. Then under Article 144, civil and judicial authorities to act in aid of the Supreme Court. All authorities, civil and judicial authorities in the territory of India shall act in aid of the Supreme Court. So it is the duty of any authority, whether he is having powers on civil side or criminal side, to give his aid to the Supreme Court when ordered for it. Then Supreme Court has got certain powers subject to provisions of any law made by the Parliament to make rules regulating generally the practice and procedure of the court. So how a practice and procedure must be there, the Honorable Supreme Court has got power under Article 145 to make some rules. So then under Article 146, Supreme Court can make appointment of officers and servants of the Supreme Court. So while considering these rules, Class 2 is very important. Under this class, number of judges to be sat and how many number of judges shall sit in a particular bench. The Supreme Court has got power. The minimum number for deciding any substantial question of law as to the interpretation of the Constitution or for the purpose of hearing any reference under Article 143 shall be 5. So when the President of India consults the Supreme Court to give opinion, then the Supreme Court has to constitute a bench of judges bench. The minimum number of judges shall be 5. Likewise, even for interpretation of any part of the Constitution, minimum number is 5. And Supreme Court has got powers to make rules. Then with this, now let us see how and what is happening in the Honorable Supreme Court of India, especially of recent appointments of 9 judges and how the people are considering the power and administration of Supreme Court in this regard. The Honorable Supreme Court has got absolute powers while doing complete justice to the parties. Honorable Supreme Court has got power to strike down a legislation made by even Parliament. So, with this power of Supreme Court, certain times the Supreme Court is exercising more powers than conferred, ignoring the procedure also. It is called judicial activism. Sometimes people are criticizing that it is judicial overreach, and sometimes they say they are dominating. Whatever it is, the power of judicial activism, which was evolved through the process of judicial review, which can be pursued and which started from the unwritten constitution of Britain during the period of Stuart in 1603 to 1688, is being exercised by the Honorable Supreme Court very effectively at present. Originally, when the Constitution has come into force, the Honorable Supreme Court, while it's functioning, it is said in initial years, it was a more technocratic court, following the technicalities of laws, but slowly began to become more active through constitutional interpretation. The court became an activist through its involvement and interpretation of law and statutes, but the whole transformation took years and it was a gradual process. We have to understand the functioning of the Supreme Court is different from time to time, and initially it was following just and seeing complying of law, so it is called as a technocratic court, while implementing or giving its decisions in respect of constitutional provisions. From that period or position as a technocratic court, it has become very active and an activist through its involvement and interpretation of law and statutes. But the whole transformation took years, and it was a gradual process. We can see originally the court was not exercising the power of judicial review in the sense it has to be exercised, but slowly there was an assertion regarding the essence and nature of judicial review. Its orders and relations are appearing to be more equitable and slowly it started to regulate itself and put some constraints on its powers whenever it is required. The court was considering sometimes about its limits and started saying that we are not running the government. We have modesty and humility, and the government or the judges shall not behave like emperors. There is a broad separation of powers under the Constitution, and each organ of the state, that is the legislature, the executive and the judiciary, must have respect for the others and must not encroach into each other's domains. So the Supreme Court sometimes restricting or limiting its powers on its own by regulating itself and putting some constraints in order to do justice completely to the parties. If the judiciary intervenes too much in the working of the other organs of the government and tries to overreach the constitutional powers, then this concept of judicial activism loses its importance and essence. Sometimes in the name of activism, the judiciary often rewrites personal views in the name of activism. Power usurpation theory is being overthrown. This is the criticism. Sometimes the people say that this power separation theory, legislature, executive, judiciary, shall act within its domain and shall not have any conflict between them or amongst them while discharging their functions. This is the separation theory. But sometimes under the guise of this judicial activism, the judiciary or some judges, they are rewriting personal views under the guise and name of activism. Then the power separation theory is failing. So, while functioning of the Supreme Court in respect of interpretation of the Constitution, certain times there may be judicial overreach and that exercise is not part of judicial review. So an activist court under the gauge of judicial activism is certainly far more efficient than a legal positivist conservative court, and the same is to safeguard humanity from legislative and executive tyranny. To safeguard humanity from legislative and executive tyranny. The MLAs or MPs, or for that matter, the elected representatives, if they fail to create welfare state, then the role of judiciary becomes indispensable, but the judiciary cannot intervene in the state affairs just to show its supremacy. With this, we can understand that the Honorable Supreme Court of India, which is the final court, is having original, appellate and review powers and jurisdictions, and also ancillary powers, and also other powers that are conferred by the Parliament to do justice completely to all the parties. With this, let us see, while it is functioning, how the Supreme Court is exercising powers regarding appointment of judges, even though there is no law provided for the Supreme Court to consider and recommend to the President to appoint a judge. What has happened is, recently, let us see what happened recently. The Supreme Court Collegium proposed 9 judges names. Out of them, 4 High Court Chief Justices and 4 High Court judges and 1 senior advocate are recommended for appointment of Supreme Court judges in a resolution on 17th August, which has happened 22 months after the last recommendation. So for a period of 22 months, there was no recommendation for appointing judges. Out of these 9 judges, 3 are the women judges, 1 judge is from the scheduled caste, and another belonging to the other backward class. With these appointments, the strength of the judges in the top court will increase from 24 to 33, with just only 1 vacancy pending, and the swearing in ceremony for the new judges is likely to take place on 31st August. You all know that out of these 3 lady judges, 1 Judge Nagaratna will be acting as Supreme Court Chief Justice for 3 months or so, and 1 Narasimha, a judge, an advocate of Supreme Court Bar Association, Supreme Court, member of Supreme Court Bar Association, he is directly appointed as Judge of Supreme Court. He is going to become Chief Justice of India for a considerable period of 2 years or so, and he will be acting as such. Then you must ask me, what is collegium and what why and how and from where the collegium is getting power for giving recommendations for appointment of judges. Actually, there is no written provision in the constitution which says that a collegium has to be constituted and recommendations of a collegium must be accepted by the union government or the President of India. That's why NJAC is formed, which we discussed about an hour ago, 15 minutes ago, regarding the powers of the Supreme Court under Article 124A to 124C. That is National Judicial Appointments Commission. A law is made that is called NJAC. That is struck down, accepting the and going for the earlier procedure. That procedure is judge-made law regarding recommendations and appointment of judges of the Supreme Court. This NJAC, that is National Judicial Appointments Commission, it's a proposed body which would have been responsible for the recruitment, appointment and transfer of judges and legal specialists in India. So this NJAC bill was an amendment, constitutional amendment bill was passed. It was ratified by the 16 of the state legislatures in India, and subsequently the President of India, the then Pranab Mukherjee, on 31st December 2014 gave his assent. It has come into force from 13 April 2015. But on 16th October 2015, the Constitution Bench of Supreme Court by 4:1 majority upheld the collegium system and struck down the NJAC as unconstitutional after hearing the petitions filed by several persons and bodies with Supreme Court Advocates on Record Association, being the first and lead petitioner. Who are the judges of that bench? Justice J.S. Kehar, Madanlal Lokur, Kurian Joseph and Adarsh Kumar Goyal. They had declared that the 99th Amendment and the NJAC Act as unconstitutional. But while Justice Jasti Iswar Chalameswar has upheld the acts, then what has happened? The Supreme Court has recommended that the old collegium system to be followed, and recommendations must go on, and it directed the union government to give suggestions regarding exercise of powers by the Supreme Court for appointment of judges. But the union government said, we don't give any suggestions, you can make your own rules. Likewise, even though NJAC is struck down and the Constitutional Amendment Bill 99th Bill is struck down and the original collegium system is accepted, then due to this judgment, the collegium system is now still holds good. Supreme Court as the guardian of the Constitution has got all powers now to follow, in view of its judgments, the collegium system. Collegium consists of 5 judges. They make recommendations for appointment of judges. The Indian Constitution provides under Part 5 the Union and Chapter 6 titled the Union Judiciary. But Supreme Court, after holding NJAC as unconstitutional, since there are already judgments of Honorable Supreme Court to follow the recommendations of the Supreme Court Collegium for appointment of judges, it has followed. But recently there is...
This meeting will end. Shall we join again, sir? Or
1 minute, madam. I will complete. Recently, the appointment of judges, 9 judges, is criticized because a judge of High Court, who is a senior most judge and Chief Justice, is not considered to be appointed as judge, and it is held that it is so because he dealt with the case of a powerful leader and decided against him, and so he is not recommended. Whatever it is, now we are following the judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court and of collegium system at present, and it will continue till further law is made as per the judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court in NJAC case. Let us hope that the judicial activism of Supreme Court will not lose its importance and essence, and Supreme Court will certainly be active and more efficient than a legal positivist conservative court to safeguard humanity from legislative and executive tyranny. With this, I stop here and request you to go through the case laws. Thank you. If you like this video, please subscribe and recommend for subscribing to others.